Thanks for joining us for this look at the best original reporting from KPBS News this week. I'm Maya Trabulsi. And coming up, answering the call. San Diego's new ambulance company is on the streets, and already we're seeing questions about response times. Woke becomes a political buzzword. We examine the conversation around race and gender and how contentious it's getting in our society. And finding a home south of the border, we will show you how San Diegans are getting more for their money as rents here continue to rise. For a second straight week, Russia's war on Ukraine is dominating headlines. Humanitarian help is flowing in from around the world, including here in San Diego. KPBS reporter Jacob Ayer shows us some of the assistance being organized locally.
Yeah, I'm here to volunteer.
San Diego's House of Ukraine is working with other local organizations like Help Ukraine Now to try and help those caught in the ongoing chaos with the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Victoria Ivanova is a Ukrainian immigrant who's an active member with the House of Ukraine in Balboa Park. She says she's worried for her family, who lives in the Ukrainian capital city of Kiev.
And I have faith that God is on our side, that the whole world is on our side. So I cannot just sit and cry. I'm trying to do everything possible to support my country from this side. Even if I'm not there, I'm still fighting.
Ivanova, who is also the coordinator at Ukrainian School of San Diego, says there are multiple ways to help, including financial donations. Ivanova says the biggest need right now is for medical and military supplies, which can be dropped off at their El Cajon Boulevard unit, which operates from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. daily.
We're asking for things like thermal blankets, thermal undergarments, socks, so it is kind of cold at this time. I talked to my parents today, it's snowing, and so we need some things to keep people warm.
Ivanova says they are also preparing for an influx of Ukrainian asylum seekers that could be coming to the region.
At this time, we don't have many refugees. I don't have anybody yet here in San Diego, but we will be expecting them. People are reaching, they're coming this way. But at this time, we do not want, we ask you not to bring the food items.
Ivanova says the supplies are sent out every few days, with the goods eventually arriving by plane into some of the surrounding European countries. For more information and ways to help, go to houseofukraine.org. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
And now more than 2 million refugees are 2 million people are now refugees in Eastern Europe as Russia's military relentlessly attacks civilian targets. KPBS will continue to follow the local response, and we also have coverage from our partners at NPR and PBS NewsHour at kpbs.org. For many of us, a consequence of this war is the continued rise in energy prices, especially to fuel our cars. A gallon now costs well over $5. Kitty Alvarado spent time with a rideshare driver who worries she might soon be priced out of a job.
It's the dreaded moment of the day. It's gonna hurt.
Tanya Edisval has been a rideshare driver for 5 years, but this is the first time she's ever had to pay almost $6 for a gallon of gasoline.
The gas is $5.78. That's insane amount of money. That's twice as much as it was when I started driving 5 years ago, and I'm making half the money. I used to fill up my tank for about $32 around there. Now it's over $50 to fill up the tank of gas. So of course, everything you're earning just eats into that.
According to AAA, gas prices in San Diego County set records nearly every single day. The average price for a gallon of gas is 55 cents more than a week ago. Edisval says rideshare drivers are on the edge.
I hear a lot of anger out there. There's a lot of drivers who want to strike. There's a lot of frustration, and I even talked to a driver that's living in his car.
She says most people have a misconception that when they pay a high rate, she's pocketing a big part of it. That's not the case.
And I had a passenger that was very upset that he paid $85 for his ride. And I said, wow, that's a lot. And what do you think I got? $18 out of 85. So it's really, really tough. And it makes it harder to justify going out late at night, picking up people who are drunk when you don't get paid good money.
She says she got into the business for the flexibility, the same flexibility that companies like Uber and Lyft tout. But inflation and gas prices that climb by the hour are squeezing her dry.
When everything increases in price, the gas increases, everything around you, your rent, your food, and you can't pay your rent and you can't pay for your food, then where's the flexibility in that? There's no flexibility in being poor. You gotta get every last drop with this kind of pricing, you know?
Kitty Alvarado, KPBS News.
It's a bit of a bumpy start for San Diego's new ambulance provider. City council members spent part of the week asking questions about understaffing that could lead to financial penalties. KPBS health reporter Matt Hoffman looks into what's going on and what the company plans to do about it.
Falck ambulances have been on the streets in San Diego full-time for about 3 months now. The company won the city's 5-year 911 contract after beating out the previous provider, American Medical Response. Falck promised more staffing and new life-saving equipment.
Yeah, so the ramp-up process was challenging.
Jeff Boehm runs Falck San Diego operations. The company spent 6 months building up before taking over just after Thanksgiving. He acknowledges that staffing requirements haven't been met yet.
We're slightly below that level. It depends. It's day to day. Now, there's challenges to that.
Boehm says the most recent COVID-19 surge complicated operations.
Now, we just came on the other side of the Omicron virus, so that's really good, and our staffing's improving very well. But January was challenging. 25% of our employees were out at some time sick with COVID.
Data from the city of San Diego over the last 3 months shows that Falck hasn't quite met their monthly staffing requirement. In February, they were about 8% short.
We're working towards meeting the goal that we said we would meet, and we're in a much better position today than we were when we started.
Fewer staff means some have to pull extra shifts, and the city is worried about busy crews and the potential for burnout.
As we move through the contract, we continue to address the requirements, and Falck, as I mentioned, is making achievements with each of those requirements.
Jody Pierce is the Deputy Chief of Emergency Medical Services for the San Diego Fire Rescue Department. She says the city runs the 911 system with Falck providing ambulance transports.
Each fire apparatus has a firefighter paramedic on it, and then the second medic is coming from Falck ambulance. And again, they're providing the transport to the hospital from the incident.
The department says to their knowledge, everyone has gotten the care they needed. And Pierce says that Falck's 3-month report card doesn't show the full picture.
I feel very good about, where we are right now in our contract agreement with them.
Falck is following through on other contract obligations, like bringing in new ambulances. At least half of the fleet is brand new, and Falck says all the vehicles will be in by April.
You can never go wrong with a brand new ambulance.
Mark Selapak is a paramedic supervisor for Falck. He's worked emergency medical response in the city over the last 22 years, which has seen many different operators.
Rural Metro, SDMSE, AMR, and now Falck, Mobile Health Corp.
Selapak says the ambulances come with new tech that helps first responders and patients, like power loading gurneys.
Helps save our back. It's also with the wing gurneys, it's more suited for our heavier patients, but one of the big factors in those gurneys is it prevents injuries.
It's also now just one person instead of sometimes 2 or 3.
Eugenie Tuma is a 911 paramedic with Falck. She says ambulances also now have Lucas devices. They deliver automatic chest compressions.
It's super easy to use, yeah. And then it'll basically start compressions. It allows one more person to do other things rather than compressions. It actually frees up 2 people.
While they have new equipment, staffing issues are persisting. Falck reports that response times are at or near 90% across the city.
We're really proud of our Falck employees, our paramedics and our EMTs that are responding out to the San Diego residents and making sure that we get there in as quickly as possible time as we can. And it's just been really under some tremendous strains in the last few months with COVID and folks being out ill, and they're just working really hard, and we're so proud of them, and I want the community to know that they're working really hard for them as well.
Falck could be fined by the city if they don't meet contract requirements. The San Diego Fire Rescue Department says they will continue working with the ambulance company to deliver the highest level of emergency services. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Let's Talk About It is a new series KPBS is launching to explore our evolving conversations about race, gender, and equity. And we're starting with the word woke, which is increasingly being thrown around as a political buzzword. Christina Kim explains how we got here.
We're living in a time where we're more divided than ever, and we need a common vocabulary to talk about those differences. But that can be hard when we're not on the same page. It's why KPBS is launching a new series called Let's Talk About It, where we answer your questions. We start today with Mike Milton. He's a retired Navy man who identifies as white and a lefty.
Center left.
Politically speaking, that is. He says he pays attention to the news and current affairs. But lately, there's one word he's been hearing a lot of that's got him scratching his head. Woke.
I think it shows how wokeism destroys everything fun in our society.
It's a word he mostly hears used by conservative media, and he's not sure what it means.
One question I do have is, what is wokeness?
The truth is, the word woke has lived many lives and iterations.
Right around the early 1960s, 70s, when you had a lot of Black Power movements and kind of civil rights issues going on at that time. It wasn't called woke, it was called consciousness.
That's Dr. Demarie Smith. He's a professor of rhetoric and media studies at San Diego State University. He says the word stems from the civil rights era.
At that time, Black people particularly started thinking about what are the ways in which our government is not necessarily protecting us as citizens.
For him, the real meaning of being woke is about connecting the dots.
To me, means basically having a consciousness about some of the systemic issues that are taking place that have unintended consequences that kind of seem as though it may be a good thing. But again, there's things that we're not necessarily thinking about.
In other words, it really just means to think critically about issues that impact us all, like education, healthcare, and policing. The word woke, though, became more mainstream in 2015, with more and more people using it that didn't know the word's origin, says Smith.
The everyday white folks, as I would say, and they started kind of using that terminology about, oh, I'm woke, I'm white, but I'm woke, you know what I mean?
Which is when the word began to change and become less a way of thinking and more like a badge to signal to other people that you weren't racist.
Levi's heard that if you're not woke, it's bad.
Even Saturday Night Live got in on the joke with its parody on a Levi's ad for woke jeans. Fast forward to today, where woke is being used by conservative media outlets to describe just about everything.
The mission statement of wokeism, of Marxism, of the BLM movement is to destroy the nuclear family.
Smith says he's not surprised to see woke take on yet another meaning.
Like all words, they can be weaponized.
In this current context, woke has become a catch-all for anything deemed progressive or inclusive.
And the problem when you hear woke is, I would say, at least for Fox News, they kind of see it as more like folks who have this like kind of socialist agenda where that at least that's their perspective. And so anything that they don't deem as correct, it's considered woke.
And that's how Mike Milton first heard of the word woke, light years away from its original meaning. So I called him back up and shared this story with him.
Educated me that it goes back not just to the, whatever that was, 90s or early 2000s, but back to the 60s and early 70s, perhaps.
Dr. Demarie Smith anticipates we'll be hearing the word woke a lot this election season. It's why he wants us to question who's using the word woke and why, so we can push past buzzwords and have conversations about real issues. Christina Kim, KPBS News.
And here are some of the most read stories this week at kpbs.org. Americans are supporting people in Ukraine online by booking Airbnbs as a way to help those trapped in the war zone. The story you saw earlier on the response time by Falck ambulances is getting a lot of views. So is Thomas Fudge's report on San Diego research that links the 2017 Oroville Dam crisis to climate change. But our most popular story this week is from our border reporter Gustavo Solis. San Diego's housing costs are making Mexico a more attractive option to find a home. He traveled to Baja to see how far your dollar will stretch and how the influx of Americans is affecting their housing market.
We're going to go to the bedrooms.
I'm spending the afternoon with Gustavo Chacon, a Tijuana realtor with a flair for showmanship.
So this is the main room. And in this, you have a balcony.
He's the type of realtor who walks you into a dark master bedroom. Then, with a flourish,
So you have a place.
Opens the curtain to reveal a beautiful view of Tijuana's eastern mountains.
You have a balcony where you can actually put a table and some chairs and enjoy the afternoon. Then this type of a house is $950.
We're in a 2-bedroom house in TJ's Las Palmas neighborhood. It's got a small yard and a balcony, and it's just 15 minutes away from the border. In San Diego, that $950 a month might get you a studio. Tijuana has always been a place where Americans can live affordably while continuing to work in San Diego. But in 2022, America's finest city also became its most unaffordable, according to Ojo Labs. It's one of the reasons why the stream of people heading south has become a flood.
Out of 10 people that call us, 7 of them are from the United States.
Jill Holstein is a professor at San Diego State University. She moved to Tijuana after the 2007 financial crisis.
We have that luxury, really, of living on the border and being able to sort of have it both ways. You know, pay low rent and have a lower cost of living in Tijuana, and then, have the powerful earning power of the United States.
She lost her North Park condo in the subprime mortgage crisis, but that misfortune gave her an opportunity to make a move she'd wanted to make for a long time. Holstein went out of her way to befriend Tijuana residents instead of limiting herself to the English-only crowds. She quickly became involved in Tijuana's art scene, and is still to this day.
Feeling like I'm not just here to take advantage of the cheap rent, but I'm here to participate in what's going on in the society.
When Holstein moved to Tijuana in 2011, her children thought it was edgy. Her coworkers thought it was more quirky and unusual. But over the last few years, and especially during the pandemic, Holstein says that friends and coworkers have been hitting her up for advice.
Explain to me how you did this, because I'm really thinking about it, but I don't understand what to do. I don't know, how much should I pay for rent, and, where should I go?
Scott Asher is among the new arrivals. He's a freelancer, works as a digital artist, makes YouTube videos, and is into NFTs. He went 18 months without finding steady work during the pandemic.
It was a solution that I needed. I was in the market for, right? I need a place to live, right? So it's definitely a solution for a place to live.
Asher is paying $550 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment in Ensenada, about an hour and a half away from the border. He couldn't find anything as nice for that price in Tijuana, let alone San Diego. And it's not just lower rent. Asher says he pays less for food, utilities, cell phone bill, dental visits, and even car insurance.
I don't know what place I'd be able to afford in California.
But every time someone like Asher makes the move south, there's an impact. The neighborhoods become less affordable for the people already living there. Chacon, the local realtor, says that what's been happening in San Diego for decades is now happening in Tijuana.
The people who make less are having a hard time to buy properties where to rent at. So, and also adding the shortage of production of housing.
That home with a balcony, the one going for $950 a month, it rented for $750 just a few years ago. Tijuana landlords know that they can make a lot more money by renting to Americans, and residents who live in upper middle class neighborhoods near the border are seeing their rents go up. But unlike Americans, people already living in Tijuana cannot simply cross the border to find more affordable housing. Instead, they're priced out and going to the outskirts of town, in neighborhoods with fewer jobs, less public services, and more crime.
It is something that's going to affect a lot of people, middle class and lower class and working class. And it is going to affect them in the long run because the prices are going to go higher. And same thing is going to happen that's happening in San Diego to Tijuana. But the only difference is that they won't have a place where they can move to, except the exterior of the cities, where there's not a lot of development.
This is Gustavo Solis for KPBS News.
Local colleges are struggling to find enough housing for their students. At San Diego City College downtown, a plan is in the works to find a solution. KPBS education reporter MG Perez shows us what it will look like.
This used to be a playground for kids and a learning center for San Diego City College students studying early childhood development. It shut down when COVID hit. A new and improved center opened around the corner last spring.
This whole place will be raised.
John Parker handles finance and facilities for City College. He knows every detail of what this corner lot at 16th and B Streets, adjacent to the campus, could look like within 5 years.
You'll be on the 15th floor, hypothetically, if you're in a single resident unit looking at $1 million condos or apartments right across the street.
Architectural renderings show a 16-story high-rise residential building housing 210 apartments with room for more than 600 residents, all registered students at City College. The college was just awarded $344,000 in state grant money to plan the affordable housing. More grant money will come when it's time to start construction.
We actually did have to complete a market analysis for rents and to ensure that the rents would be below market and get priority given to low-income students.
What is your housing situation right now?
Right now, I'm homeless.
Right now, Maria May is studying here at the new City College Child Development Center while living in a hotel with her husband and 2 children. The family immigrated from Mexico and continues to struggle to find an affordable place to live.
We're trying to apply for different houses, different departments, but they have a waiting list, so they never choose us. So, and we pay for the applications, but nothing happens.
Maria is not alone in her search for affordable housing. In 2020, City College officials surveyed their students as the pandemic proceeded. 64% of them said they were living with housing insecurity. It's a similar story in the South Bay, where Southwestern College has been given almost $1 million in state grant money to plan affordable housing for students at its 4 campuses. More than 70 California community colleges will benefit from the state's funding to help students survive and succeed.
They may have kids, transportation issues, so this will provide a relief for them to focus on their studies and get to the next level in their education endeavors.
For Maria May, that includes the dream to be an administrator or a teacher and find a break that will lead to a home for her family. MG Perez, KPBS News.
San Diego might have to find another way to expand the convention center. A legal ruling this week could be the end of a ballot measure that would have also paid for homeless services. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen tells us where things stand.
Measure C on the March 2020 ballot would have raised the city's hotel tax to fund an expanded convention center, homelessness programs, and infrastructure. It got almost but not quite a 2/3 majority. That kicked off a long and complex legal battle over what threshold the measure needed for approval, and whether the city waited too long before declaring the measure passed. The nonprofit Alliance San Diego sued the city over Measure C.
This case could have been about any ballot measure. Our concern was about the power taken by City Council to ignore election law and manipulate the election to get the results that they wanted.
Mayor Todd Gloria sent KPBS the following statement, quote, "This ruling is an unfortunate delay, but we're undeterred in seeking the court's validation of Measure C. We will continue to fight to secure the millions of dollars for homelessness and road repair that a significant majority of San Diegans voted for." The city council will have to vote on whether to move the case up to the Court of Appeal. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Some better news this week for the gas lamp. Major League Baseball ended its lockout after team owners and the players' union agreed to a new collective bargaining agreement. The season will start April 7th with the first home game at Petco Park on April 14th. A handful of games that were canceled will be rescheduled. Finally, a big change is in store a few blocks away from the area that includes Seaport Village. Alexander Nguyen shows us what developers have in mind for the waterfront.
On a perfect San Diego day, tourists can be seen milling around catching some sun. But something new over the horizon could drastically change this part of San Diego waterfront. The port is reviewing a $3 billion plan to redevelop the downtown waterfront, which includes Seaport Village and 2 nearby parks.
Look how big this flag is. Y'all gonna hang it up?
And that's not sitting well with Mike Ishmael. He's the owner of Alamo Flags, which has been in business at Seaport Village since 1990.
It's the wrong move because this is like Seaport Village is like a landmark. It's a beautiful area for families and they see the bay and they walk around and they enjoy themselves and it's a relaxed atmosphere. Changing it, I don't really agree upon that.
Ishmael says redevelopment would change the atmosphere of the Seaside Shopping Center. But others, like Shapi Tavakoli, who owns a Seaport fudge factory, thinks it's about time Seaport Village gets an upgrade.
I think it's a great idea. It's time. The ground needs a little bit of work. That all these tree roots is, ruining the ground structure.
Under the proposed plan, all of this would be gone except for the carousel and replaced with hotels, restaurants, an art exhibition space, and a yacht club. There are also plans for a 500-foot tower with observation decks, an aquarium, and public space. Yehudi Gaffin is the CEO of Portillo Waterfront Development. He says the project will be transformational. Gaffin says it's a priority that small businesses that make up the character of Seaport Village be able to stay and be a part of the new waterfront.
We have made the commitment to them that anyone who wants to stay will be able to stay. We will phase our project to be able to give them continuity of business. We realize a small business can't shut down and then open up a few years later.
The plan has the support of the San Diego City Council, Mayor, and the Chamber of Commerce. It would be some time before the port makes a final decision. Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
And we hope that you enjoyed this look at KPBS News this week. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Thanks for joining us.